Welcome to the Slip Pivot Sessions. I'm Liz Ward, the UK's first pivot coach and founder of Slip Pivot, and this is the podcast where we dig, delve and deconstruct the journeys of people who have pivoted their businesses and careers. This episode has been recorded while we are deep in lockdown during the coronavirus pandemic. I'm in my lounge at my home in Hertfordshire. We've been locked down for almost 2 weeks. How are we all doing today? I hope you're all staying safe and well at home. I'm feeling really grateful for this podcast and for all the technology out there that is helping us all to remain connected. The world has changed so much, and I know many of you will be at a pivot point with your businesses and careers. I want to bring you as much inspiration and insight during this time of uncertainty, so I've been putting together some of the best positive business pivot examples during this pandemic. My hope is that by sharing these stories, it can spark inspiration for you. I'll be sharing these pivot examples over the next few weeks, so make sure you're subscribed to get the next episode when it comes out. Today we are dissecting the virtual rave that connected the world, a moment in time where there was mass fear, uncertainty, and we were all being told to stay at home to slow down the spread of COVID-19. On March 20th, 2020, Defected Records brought house music directly into houses around the world by hosting a 12-hour virtual music festival. Streaming DJ live sets from an empty Ministry of Sound nightclub in London, across Twitter, Facebook and YouTube, reaching over 10 million people. It was just what the world needed on the first Friday night when the world had really changed. People were dancing in their living rooms, partying together with their friends via apps on the internet. But just how did the Defected Team pivot their business to deliver 12 hours of positivity to millions in just 5 days? I'm joined by James Kirkham, Chief Business Officer from Defected Records, who shares an exclusive inside track on how this seminal moment in dance music culture came about. I really enjoyed hearing from James. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribers, reviews and star ratings really help us grow this podcast and bring you amazing guests like James. Let's dive in. So hi James, thank you for coming on the Slick Pivot Sessions.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really wanted you to come on because I think that Defected Records have just done such a brilliant thing in pouring in the joy into this landscape that we're in at this stage. And you know, music is such a shortcut to changing your emotional state, and what you did bringing the Defected Virtual Festival to life in that it was pretty much the first week of social distancing
It was.
in the UK, and I just wanted to dive into this and can you kind of set the scene? What was the point in time when you thought this was a good idea?
I love your expression, pouring in the joy, by the way. I'm definitely going to thieve that if that's okay. Honestly, it was not a long piece of planning. There was a WhatsApp conversation that went on for about half a dozen of us on a Sunday evening. That was it was obviously a reaction to the fact that, you know, Defected Records is ultimately a kind of like a new era music company. It's, you know, it has its kind of income, if you like, driven by selling records, of course, but it's more than just that. And events has been a massive part of it. So that might be things like the 8th season in Ibiza, that might be our own Defected Croatia festival, and so many more kind of events and festivals and parties and tours. And so many have suddenly got postponed or cancelled. And we got this almost disco philosophy, I guess, within the business that's all about, there's a lovely quote that Honey Dijon makes that is, dance floors unite people in a way that governments and religions never could. And it's something we think is so true and what we stand by, and this ability to bring people together, this kind of all access, this kind of taking down barriers and all of that sort of stuff that works so brilliantly on a defected dance floor. Well, suddenly
it's so true, isn't it? Dance floors unite people.
God, yeah. I mean, you know, I can really go on about that, but I think dance music, music full stop's the ultimate common denominator, and it's the ability to have that passport to other cultures. It breaks down barriers, it can unite, it can galvanize and bring people together. And those kind of ingredients, suddenly we're like, oh, hold on, we can't just remove that from what it is our business. And ultimately our community is so unbelievably important to us. So we we sort of dreamt up kind of literally overnight the idea of a virtual festival. We said, well, hold on, why don't we still try and do this? Let's put something out on Friday that's, as you say, pour the joy. But, you know, we were like bringing the light and the life, bringing the music to people, back to them on Friday, seemingly when they need it most. We announced it on the Monday morning. What we didn't expect was that by sort of the Monday afternoon, a whole load of DJs and artists from sort of Shapeshifters to Monkey to Sam Divine to Joey Negro had all leaned in and said, can we be a part of this too? And the Ministry of Sound Club, who of course have been, you know, hit super hard by this situation, also said, well, our club will be empty, but you can effectively use it. So it kind of moved on very quickly from, we were going to play a bunch of our sort of favorite old sets that no one had seen from Croatia, boat parties and things like that. We sort of moved it to, oh, right, we can actually have this bespoke and unique and live and real.
So it was going to be pre-recorded.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, entirely. It was going to be more than that. It was going to be unplayed, unseen kind of sets and footage from from like Ibiza sunset sets, or from, you know, Croatia boat parties or whatever. And it quickly turned into entirely live, playing live. We reached out to YouTube and Facebook, who were both super keen. And then on the Thursday night of that week, it went out on the Friday. On the Thursday night, Twitter actually got in touch with us themselves and said, look, we're up for this too. It had a very lovely joined up collaborative partnership feel about it. Everyone's kind of normal, perhaps reticence to be a part of something that, say, another platform would be owning, in inverted commas. It all kind of dropped away actually in a really lovely way. And we were able to put it out on all of those platforms, meaning it was kind of ubiquitous and everyone could see it and hear and, you know, dance along. And there was
so it's like all the kind of competition went away and it ended up being collaboration, and there was no exclusivity. It's like everyone,
very much so,
let's
actually
just get involved here.
Yeah, it's, you know what, it sort of had that feel right from the start. And I guess it's the nature of the time, which is a part of this whole point. I think it became so successful because it's so the sentiment and the need almost. I'm not sure we quite realised the necessity. We thought it would be a nice thing to do. Yes, it had first mover advantage. We're an agile business. We could move quite quick. We had this wonderful roster of talent we could kind of bring to the table immediately. We brought our dancers along. We could still do that at that point. But there were like 6 people in the entire Ministry of Sound Club at any one time. And everyone was kind of wiping their equipment down and hand sanitizing and elbow bumping. So there's some lovely kind of messages that we were able to bring to it.
I remember watching that as the guy coming in and like wiping the decks, as you know, before the DJ changed over.
Yeah.
They're keeping it really clean.
Well, yeah, it's the cleanest decks you've ever seen in your life in the end. But people, the messaging on that was so sweet. Like the fans were like, oh my God, I can't believe this is now normal. The fact that we're watching people effectively sort of sanitize and wipe down a mixer prior to doing a set. But it, you know, it's good messaging to give at that time. And it was very important, of course, government messaging that we were also making sure that we perpetuated in the right way. But it was the feeling that erupted, like the messaging from the millions, and it ended up being millions of people at homes with their iPads or iPhones with their, you know, playing it out in their living rooms. So many played it out on their kind of internet tellies in their living rooms and then danced along, had a gin and tonic whilst they're watching, had their kids seeing house music for the first time. That cross-generational mad mix wherever people were was like, wow, that kind of hit us quite hard actually. It was quite emotional.
Yeah, I mean, my kids were in bed, which was lucky because I've not been dancing for a while because my kids are little. And on the night, it was like the first time I'd ever done a Facebook watch party.
Oh, awesome.
Because I'd never needed to do it before. And so we had YouTube on the Apple TV on the TV. And then we had the laptop with a Facebook watch party with the volume off. And then brilliant. I had friends kind of joining in on Facebook that I haven't spoken to for years. Like my old clubbing friends from like my university mates, my schoolmates, and people were coming on, and then we weren't talking, we were using GIFs like of people dancing. And so everyone was searching for like the funniest GIFs. to go
Oh,
with the
that's so
music.
sweet.
And it was just a really like point in time where we were communicating and connected, where everyone was feeling a bit sad on that Friday night.
Mm.
And it brought us all together. But the tech was really interesting because all this tech has already been there.
Agreed.
And this point in time meant that people have started to use the little bits of tech in different ways and kind of merging different ones together.
Agreed.
So how was the tech for you? Like, did you plan it strategically or just like get stuck in with it all?
We just wanted, well, there were two sides, and what you just said is such a perfect like slice of the emotion of the fans and the people who are getting involved. And I absolutely love that description. And it was really interesting the way you naturally made it happen with your friends in a virtual way. A load of people did the same, where they said, oh yeah, we all got a house party for the first time and did it, or yeah, I had a 45-man Zoom call and we all turned the volumes down and we danced like mad. In fact, a mutual friend of ours, Jack Horner, does that now religiously every Friday, where and Defected we followed this up on the following week, but we finished that time, I think it was at 8 o'clock, whereas the first week we finished at midnight. And he was literally fuming, going, hold on, we were all there dancing, and then suddenly it's turned off. We didn't know where to go. We didn't know what to do. The soundtrack to our home raving. But to answer your question, we wanted the big ubiquitous all access platforms. You know, you can kind of say what you want about the kind of years. Going back to I guess the political divide that the likes of Facebook or Twitter have had, but at times like this, that ability to access so many people at any one time can bring people together. I think if you are a brand trying to bring positivity and unify and frankly good times, then being able to leverage platforms like that with that level of geographical coverage and sheer exposure means no one's got any excuse to miss it, right? The second week was kind of demanded. Everyone was like, you've got to do this again, you have to make this every week. We genuinely weren't intending that in the first place. We just wanted to do a one-off, or rather we thought that was what we would do, but the sentiment was such that we're like, oh gosh, we can't not now do one. Look at the positive sentiment. But there we also flagged people and said, you can do this at home. And I think then, well, for the first time in our assets in our socials, we referenced, look, you can sort of play and dance along on House Party or Zoom, and we created a set of house rules, like dance like everyone's watching or nobody's watching, and turn the music up and annoy the neighbors, and all of that kind of fun stuff to encourage people to do exactly what you've just described. And we had a guy sending in video dancing from his hospital bed in Greece, listening on his iPad. We had 2 NHS nurses in their vehicle, which probably sounds slightly worrying, but with an iPad, like a gear stick between them, they were dancing along, leaving a clip, and so many kind of families and kids and stuff. And it's the layers of interaction, the layers of love coming back from fans, is that feedback loop. That's a pretty amazing thing to see.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that that's one of the things with building a business or pivoting, creating new stuff, is you really want to get that customer feedback. And in this scenario, you've been getting oodles of it. So I imagine like each week you're refining and making it better. And how has it been now full lockdown has happened? How's that affected production?
Well, yeah, massively. It's a really good question. So the first week, like you described, we were in a, albeit completely empty Ministry of Sound, but you could go still big production with the lights. So we had like confetti cannons, and, we still had elements that were born from, the ingredients of a brilliant Defected club night, if you like. That's obviously changed. Week 2, we had bespoke sets, kind of. So we had like a Reader Star set that he recorded specially, and that's where we've had to move forward to. Where although we've got this amazing lineup now, because people are seeing its worth and its value and want to be a part of it, they're recorded each time. So I'm not sure when this podcast is going out, but we're sat here just before Easter, aren't we? We've got I can't even say, we've just realised we've not put the lineup out yet, but we've got an amazing lineup that's about to be released that, again, the listeners by now will know, where some quite ludicrously stellar kind of artists and DJs are involved, recording entirely bespoke, distinct and unique sets from either their living rooms or balconies, incredibly amazing locations that most of these people will know, or the West Coast of America, bespoke only for this, that we're then putting together like 8, 9, 10 hours of festival from. So this lovely original material that's now kind of coming out, which will be really nice. And the artists are, like when I mentioned Reva Star, like there's been a real big, I've noticed it's crossed over quite a lot from just, we've got a really strong like 5 million house music community, vociferous bunch, but it's the amount of people who clearly weren't in it, but who were talking about Defected or coming to me and saying, oh, we were all watching that, we were a part of it. And I'm like, really? I didn't even know you liked house music. That's cool.
Yeah.
And they're finding acts like, you know, Follamore or Reva Star or Dan Shake or whatever for the first time, which is really lovely. And some of the DJs have even said that. They're like, gosh, we put X thousand new Instagram followers on my account after me playing at the virtual festival. Like it's as you say, this creativity and pivoting at a moment suddenly breeds new and exciting kind of opportunity, which is really nice. And again, was never the intent. That's a lovely byproduct.
Yeah, it's like his whole period of discovery and like
Yeah.
community and growing all of that. And I think that what I usually see when a pivot works, it's about kind of, there's a few principles about being nimble, like going before you're ready, telling everyone before you're ready, and you know, building like one step at a time. And it seems like you guys have done all of those things just completely organically from that moment of the WhatsApp message.
I love that. I definitely don't think I knew those principles, but entirely by accident, we definitely followed them. The obvious one was getting in early. We knew this would be the time for live streams, for live events. So fantastic. And you know, we definitely don't have any negativity or ill feeling or ill will or anything like that. Like that's cool. But I was speaking to, I won't say who, I was speaking to someone actually from a major label only last week, and they were telling me about something that was due to be broadcast just a day or two later, like some huge acts, some huge artists, and I hadn't even heard of it. And he was like, no, I know, well, there's so many at the moment, they're all competing. And I guess the reason I'm saying it is, gosh, getting them there early doesn't half change the game if you can be swift. So your point about that agility, that being nimble, that is everything, because the coverage from a conversation like this one, which is so nice, which is much more about the in-depth stuff, to the way it was on BBC News all weekend. It was on Radio 2 on Steve Wright's show, The Telegraph, Forbes magazine. Very unexpected, like press destinations for what is ultimately a 21-year-old house music label, right? And that's, I think, an ability to get there first, and then everyone takes note.
Yeah, and it was that, again, as you said, it was that a need state for people at that point. Like there was a real like desire for positive news amongst all the chaos that was going on and all the fear. And you're also, I think I read that you're like 10 weeks into this role. Is that right?
Yeah, you did.
And so was this kind of thing, and the other thing about pivot is often it could be something that you've already been having in your vision, like subconsciously you're thinking, oh, that would be really cool to do something like that. So when the point in time happens, you're kind of ready. Is this something that you'd like imagined that you might do for Defected when you joined the job?
I definitely wanted to help take this amazing brand further, to have it as the reflex response. If anyone ever mentions dance music anywhere in the world, I wanted Defected to be the de facto kind of answer or response, if you like. And I did, jokes aside, I did actually remember sitting down and I was speaking with our MD and Simon, the founder, and saying things like, I want to be in places like Forbes magazine. I want us to be in broadsheets. I definitely didn't expect it to be within like 10 weeks on the back of a global pandemic. That wasn't part of the strategy. But Defected they've been so canny for so long, so it's always been about the music, like absolutely always this incredible steadfast resolve that's driven by Simon Dunmore, the founder, where the likes of EDM comes and goes. Defected stay true to what kind of made it so special, and everything eventually came back around to it. So that appreciation and genuine legitimacy and authenticity in a certain genre has been so important. They then grew this community. So there's over 5 million fans and followers digitally now on Defected channels. So again, many brands in my old world, and maybe yours, the likes of FMCG or telecoms, whatever it might be, often query, I think, the value of social fans. Well, if you get it right with an amazing back catalogue of music behind you, the ability to ultimately, stream great music, push music to the right people at the right times, the right genres, match the right moods, that's commercially a really viable thing. And it means that you don't have to spend loads on outside marketing if anything, you can spend time with what you've got internally, your internal resource, creating and crafting content. So when I joined, I knew I could help bind and galvanize these amazing bits they're already doing. They were good storytellers, but could we make them even better storytellers? There was amazing bits of content, but how big could we go on some of these bits of content? Digital innovations, you know, they did a live broadcast from Tower Bridge a year or two ago with like Camel Flat playing as the sunset across Tower Bridge. Like, they're no stranger to innovation, but elements like this, again, you could bind and bring together more, and then give it the right kind of press so that the world sits up and takes notice. So yeah, it's a dream mix in that respect, combining content and digital and social and IP and innovation. It just so happens to come again through a very brief conversation in a moment like this, as I say, off some very strange context, which no one could have anticipated.
Yeah, it's like you took all the ingredients that were already there and like already working and just mixed them up a bit differently.
Absolutely.
And this kind of came out. And so, what would you say your personal like high five moments have been over the last few weeks?
Gosh, that's a great question. Honestly, the reaction, the first reaction and love of the community when we landed the virtual festival for the first time, seeing it as in real time when we saw it live, there was a very nervy moment. I think we went out on midday on that first Friday or 1 o'clock, and but it was in the middle of the afternoon either way, and the DJs all said to a person, despite playing some of the biggest places in the world, the biggest clubs you can only imagine, and I'm sure you've known or seen them, this was the most nervous they've ever been, playing to an entirely empty club, but knowing the reach was so many millions. So it working, and then the reactions pouring in, that was definitely a high five moment. I think then the lovely stuff like this feeling of capturing a moment perhaps and answering a need and a requirement, you know, this idea of this sentiment being so needed now, then, you know, that's fantastic. And honestly, I think probably internally as well, we talked super transparently and honestly. It's the style of the business anyway, so it's nice for me to just walk into that with the team, where when we started working from home about maybe 10 days prior to everyone else. Simon Dunmore, again, to his credit, called it quite early with his MD Wes. And we said, let's trial it out. And it worked fine. So we said, let's just stick it out and see how we go. And then it became a government initiative. But at that moment, it felt a strange moment, because I think we all knew we weren't coming back for a while. And I remember sitting with a bunch of sort of the people directly in my team in marketing, content and socials. And we talked a lot afterwards. But I think we reminded them of what comes from adversity, like the sheer creativity, people's predisposition to frankly create and make and do at certain highly pressurized times through adversity is sometimes magic, and it is an amazing leveler. And if you're a young kid of 23 and you're in your maybe even your first job, and we've got lots of brilliant youngsters, I would say, in the business like that, you can make your name at times like this by there's never going to be more of a moment to show off, to do great work, to get stuff out there, to get it broadcast, to get it out in the world. And people will, if they grab that moment and grab that, then you know, they can have the lovely lights shone on them and their work and do fantastic from it. And I think seeing those guys respond in the face of all this has been a real kind of pleasure to witness.
That's really amazing, seeing the team shine. And I think, you know, you talk about adversity. Sometimes, like, these are the perfect conditions, because there's no time for like procrastination or being a perfectionist, and the vision is clear. It's like, we're doing this one thing quickly, and we're doing it well. So, you know, you kind of have to just accelerate that, and
So
you
true.
know, being nimble and going, okay, actually we don't need those 5 things, we're just going to do these 3 things, and getting them
So
out
true.
quickly and fast. I think, you know, one of the problems that people have on a normal day is that we try to get it right so much. Oh, it has to be this, and let's tinker, and let's send it to 10 people for sign off, and wonder about whether it would be better if we did this, that or the other. And when we're operating in under adversity,
I love that.
you just kind of get it fucking done, don't you? Excuse the language.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an amazing creative director. She then became a CEO. Her name's Judy Johns. Was at the Canadian, I think it was Toronto, Leah Burnett, and she was the overall creative on an ad campaign we did called Like a Girl. And I remember this is years ago now. She taught me something brilliant, which is exactly what you've just said. But it was when they did pitches, and they won a lot of pitches. They had this fearsome creative team at the time, like crew. But she said, "Do you know what we do? we get the idea at 50, maybe 60% max, and then we just refine. Whereas most people on a 2 or 3 week pitch process spend about 2.5 weeks coming up with the idea and then scrambling with the last 2 days. They completely reverse that and say, you agree it, you work it out quickly, because even if it's wrong, you are then doing it with confidence. It is refined with confidence. It is kind of distilled and all of that sort of good stuff. And I think that's a really lovely way to think. As you say, it's not 5 things, it's 3 things. Distill it down, do it simple, get it away, worry about the other bits after.
And as soon as you run it or put it out, you get that feedback, and then you can tweak, you know. And
I love that.
it's you know, I work with people that want to change their career or grow their business, and often it's quite hard to get this point to land. It's like, you just got to go and get the feedback and then tweak. And I think that the pivots that are coming out of this period in time are just such beautiful case studies of actually,
I love that.
we can operate like this going forward. We can create these conditions, obviously without the terrible stuff that is going on, but you know, you can almost take the learnings for how to act lean from this environment. And
do you think this will be and so with the kind of people that you speak to, are you finding that you're getting more creativity than ever that's coming out of this kind of chaos and mess in the background, or are people paralyzed by sort of not knowing which way to turn? Or
I think it depends where people are on the process. So I've got clients that have been working on what is their vision, what are their values, what is the stuff that's really working in their business, what is, you know, what things can they leverage? And so those people that are at that state of readiness have been able to pivot quickly, as like you guys, because, you know what you're about, you know what you stand for, and you can serve this need. For some others, it's about getting real clarity on what is important and what direction do they want to be taking themselves personally or the business. So having that kind of strategic groundwork done has that's where I've seen people pivot quickly. For others, actually, this time is a really good time to reflect and go, okay, what is important to me? What stuff is not working? What do I want to drop? And where do I want to double down and accelerate? So people are at different points in time, and also depending on their life situation. We've all been affected by this in different ways, and businesses have been affected in different ways, you know, what depending on what kind of industry you're in or what kind of business you've got. So it's quite different for different people. But to answer your question, yes, definitely seeing lots of creativity.
I find that so fascinating. I wonder if massive corporations will learn from perhaps the smaller shops and places, or in our world, smaller labels, or in, you know, brand world. I wonder if, because they have to, I mean, you know what I mean? I'm wondering if we've seen success stories, if you call them success, because we understand the situation, but, you know, I think Brewdog have come out and got a lot of plaudits, kind of rightly so, for immediately, again, trying to innovate within product. I think AB InBev again are another drink that's trying to use their sort of bring purpose into it and use their factories for the certain reasons at this time. And I think they're getting the right kind of plaudits for that. I guess there's other places where they're just going to be stuck, and they might be having those conversations of how the hell do we do this, and maybe having to look at their entire way that they work, because if you can't work at speed, it's very difficult at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of lessons in this about being more nimble and building so that you can be nimble, infrastructure and teams and everything like that. And so my next question is, what have been your biggest challenges over the last few weeks?
This one sounds like a made up one, but we've put such kind of onus on the guys and the whole teams to just keep bringing ideas to the table that we've probably almost got too much at the moment, in the respect that your rules that you've just given about making sure it's simple and going out, you know, on a smaller scale, we're having to sort of try and remember stuff like that ourselves. We keep adding bits on and layering bits on, you know. This, as soon as this idea went out the door, I was straight on everyone going, that's cool, but what's next? What's the innovation next? What's the way we keep this momentum up? What's going to feel different? Now we're going to carry this idea on, because there's just a very lovely regularity now to this, a simplicity that everyone on a Friday frankly wants to have a drink and a dance. But that's not our business. That's just a very small part of it that's going to be a fantastic way of bringing people together. But, you know, I'm also putting the pressure on as well, and finding the other 5, 6, 7, you know, 8 massive, frankly, ideas to cut through in similar ways. So it's about doing that in the right way. It's, you know, how much is too much? We're doubling down on content. We're doubling down on our music output, what we're actually sharing and signing. Like, how much is too much? Like, trying to find that balance. You know, I don't know about you, but I mean, it's kind of weird in this time because, again, through such adversity and frankly a horrific situation, my God, there's some good content out there. Like,
Yeah.
there's some great uses of the medium. Look at what Joe Wicks is doing for kids in PE and every weekday morning. Like, fair play to him. He's probably gone to the A-list celeb status now with millions of kind of new fans and viewers because he does a PE lesson. Or you know, my personal love is the way the old Charlatans lead singer Tim Burgess does these listening parties on Twitter. That is just the most pure use of the medium that I adore, and it appeals to my 90s indie boy.
Have you seen Mr. C doing meditation on Facebook
Oh,
Live?
what? I've not seen that yet. Gosh,
So I went
all over
into
that.
on Sunday morning. I went into our bedroom and my husband was lying on the bed going like, you know, in a zen state. Like, what are you doing? He's like, Mr. C is doing a meditation.
Oh, this is
and I'm
awesome.
like, oh my goodness. So yeah, he's definitely on my recommendation list of innovators in this time.
That in itself is genius. But there's some genuinely brilliant stuff about, isn't there? You know, there's how was it described? Was it in Rolling Stones Day where they said UFC with creators, which is that Timbaland stuff. I don't know if you've been seeing those kind of songwriting battles that Timbaland's been doing. Again, there's so many that I'm sure your listeners have got another million examples. I don't know where that ends. I don't know if that's too much, too noisy, too much clutter, or if that's just a lovely long tail of what and who you're interested in. So it doesn't matter because you've always got ultimate choice.
Yeah, I think, you know, for those people, those audiences that like those people, they'll be, you know, and
I guess
they'll
great.
be enjoying that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, thank you. I know my mum, she's really also really into meditation. She's like, this is great. I've got this
what
at
about
12
Mr. C?
o'clock. No, Mum,
Oh.
she's not listening to Mr. C. But you know, she's saying I'm tuning into something at midday, something at in the evening, and
See, that's sweet.
she's getting loads of stuff that she couldn't get before because,
I love that.
you know, she had to go to physical events and didn't want to do that.
I thought you were going to tell us your mum was a Shaman fan from old. I like that idea.
No, she isn't. How do you think this is going to change Defected going forward?
We certainly don't want it to displace or replace any of the real world events. The ability to come together and have a fantastic, you know, party at whatever glitter. If you've ever been to one of the Glitterbox events, be it in Ibiza or the incredible stuff at Printworks, or they're pretty amazing. Croatia's a pretty magical kind of festival. So it's not going to displace that. It's definitely going to enable us, I think, to have a bit more clout and power to do more, though, if that makes sense. Like it, I think you can do stuff like this that brings people together in their millions en masse, which is super like potent for us as a brand to do, to bring music to the masses in that way. I think there'll be increasingly other sides to this coin, though. Like that's en masse, but I think this idea of proximity and a much more personal connection will come through, and that maybe that's from the tech. I don't know about you, but you know, we're on our Zoom calls every morning with leadership and then with the rest of the team, heads of department. But you've got like dogs barking in the background. You've got like various, you know, partners or family members or loved ones, like, you know, accidentally involved. But it creates a very personal. You see in artifacts and books that you didn't know they had in the background on their shelves, and there's a new personal nature to it that just isn't there in an office environment. And I guess what I'm getting to is I think that will happen more and more too with music, with artists, with talent. I think those with character and personality will be demanding a little interface or audience with those people on a 25-man Zoom call equivalent, or in my old world of football and sport, you might do it with players with personality where you can get up close and personal. And in a strange way, that's where this tech that is about joining distance really does that, and it's much more about character and closeness and personality, and that again will be a really good thing. And if we at Defected kind of exploit that more, and we have the equivalent of, you know, these lovely all access kind of mechanics, or beautiful way to get closer to the DJs or people in the craft of some of the albums we're putting together, you know, later this year, then that could be a really good thing, actually.
Yeah, I keep talking about connection, but it is that deeper connection of like seeing someone's lounge that's not sugar coated. It kind of
Yeah,
like just makes you like them more, doesn't it?
it does.
It's a funny thing. And so obviously live is quite important for the music industry in terms of revenue. Do you think that people will look at monetizing these virtual music experiences? And are people doing that
Yeah,
already?
absolutely. And there's a lot of monetization already going on. I think for us, we definitely had, as you can imagine, a few approaches from partners after the success of the first, or potential partners. For us, as always, it's about the right partnership that brings value or relevance to our audience. You know, I'm a commercially driven beast. I ran that within Copper 90 for 4 or 5 years, worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, used to have an agency. So it's not something I have any sort of allergic reaction to. On the contrary, I think if you can work with some brilliant brands, then you can do great work. You know, my old daughter Copper 90 has just done a lovely stay-at-home series with EA around FIFA, for example, where they've got talent like Rio Ferdinand, pieced together footballers, and it's all played out in a very cute at-home filmic style on Copper 90. And it's just very easy, simple stuff. It's a natural behavior that you can bring back into people's homes using talent. Point is, that's a nice big brand deal. And if the brand deal is relevant for the point in time, or if the brand deal is a brand or a partnership that the audience gets something out of, or is useful for them, or is relevant for them, then I think that's great. So, you know, if that ends up being a good commercial partnership for something like this, then fantastic. But if not, fortunately, it isn't the be all and end all for us. We don't require it because, we're ultimately underpinned by the machine that is making music, which is great.
And do you think you'll ever do like direct to consumer or direct to dancer, get them to pay you? Like sell
Um,
tickets for these things?
I love that question. I mean, before all of this happened, you know, I was putting some slides together for something, and it was something like 500,000 paying ticket buying people. I can't think of the word. In other words, 500,000 people effectively buy tickets for a Defected event or party in a year, which is amazing. You know, contextually, that's like, compare that to, we do 1 billion streams roughly of our music, but that's a lot of people being a part of something and attending something and wanting to be a part of it. Now, that question you just asked, you know, that's kind of interesting. I certainly wouldn't rule that out. It doesn't feel the natural norm right now.
Mm-hmm.
But why should it be different from a micropayment to watch a streaming of a sporting event or a music event or a gig ticket, as you kind of perhaps suggest? The idea that, I don't know, pay £1 with a thumbprint to gain access to your favorite 8 DJs over the course of, you know, a night exclusively to your phone, perhaps that works. It isn't what we're doing at the moment, because the sentiment at the moment is about uniting and bringing people together, whoever they are, wherever they are. And I think it would be at odds with that. But absolutely never say never if there's the right stuff at the right time, if that's what people want.
Okay, well, let's watch that space.
Hmm.
And so what do you think the formula is for making a pivot then in a business?
Um,
What ingredients, you know, do you need in order to pull something
uh,
off in 5 days like you did?
I think you need to be audacious. I think audacity is always a good word in stuff like this. Like, just when you think you can't do it, you go again and you leap that challenge or barrier, because there'll be about 48,000 barriers in the course of 4 or 5 days. The reason you can't be done, or it needs to be worse, or it needs to be diluted. You just need to be audacious and think, well, we can actually, and this is our way around it. So you need a bloody good natural kind of, as I call it, like a working compass, knowing your way around those challenges, knowing your way how to circumnavigate those barriers. That's kind of key. But audacity is everything. Confidence, you can actually pull it off. And also, frankly, a reason for being. We have that from our community. The existence of our fans, they're the ones who are sort of needing this feeling, needing this positivity, and then the week afterwards, needing it to return. They needed it regularly. That's all fan driven. That's community driven. We simply wouldn't have done it again were it not for the fact that they were all in their droves saying, you have to do this every week. You know, and here we are today, and we're about to do another one at Easter, and then we've got another 3 lined up after that. And, you know, I'm not sure communities often, be it wherever they might be sort of generally residing or sitting, or what social platform they might be on, or owned and operated, they still maybe never quite realize the power they exert and that they hold, and that they can affect brands so massively. And if a brand is able to tune into their wants and their feelings and what it is that they're after and deliver it, then that is a lovely, rich combination. It's quite alchemic.
Yeah, so like listen to what people are saying to you and deliver
Absolutely.
that. And that's the sweet spot. And so you mentioned there something's coming up at Easter. So where can people tune in to the Defected Festival if they're listening and haven't been involved yet?
It will be on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Twitch on Good Friday from 1 p.m. until I think 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and it is a quite ridiculous lineup of bespoke, unique music that's been put together from a list of pretty awesome DJs. So we're as excited. It's as big as we've ever done, and there's a couple of special surprises too. But yeah, it'll be fantastic.
Well, I cannot wait to dance in my living room once more to that on Good Friday, which is classic clubbing weekend, isn't it?
Exactly.
And thank you so much for coming on, James. That's been such a brilliant conversation. Good luck with everything else.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to the Slick Pivot Sessions with me, Liz Ward, the podcast for life's achievers and believers. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this as much as I've enjoyed making it. Please take a moment to rate and review on Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcasts. This helps us to grow and bring you amazing guests. The show notes have all the links and references from today's session. And for your weekly dose of pivot inspiration, sign up to Slick Pivot Sunday, my weekly newsletter. Just visit slickpivot.com. And until our next session together, stay nimble and remember, no pivot is ever slick.